Here we are. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday from the Midwest. I'm having it's time to come back. It's time that I've taken a break from YouTube, and I may be getting penalized. The algorithm may be penalizing me for taking a break from YouTube, but I've been incredibly busy. I just got back at the end of last month from the third language of breathworker school. I am making all the finishing touches on my my most recent book, A Practical Guide to Cold Training, and that should be coming out August 31st. So definitely look for that. That's actually going to be kind of a cool book because what I'm doing is, of course, pun intended, but basically what I'm doing with that book is if you're familiar with A Practical Guide to Cold Training, this is a book that I came out with. Actually, it was an ebook back in the day. So it was originally an ebook back in 2019. I came out with that, and it was after I saw a lot of people getting into cold training and just having terrible things happen to them because there was a lot of junk advice back then. There's even more junk advice out there today. Actually, that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. But I started writing that ebook because I realized that there was a lot of just recklessness in the cold training world. And I was trying to hopefully save some toes and maybe even save a few lives. So, hey, welcome. Good to see you guys here. Where are you from? I'd love to get any questions you might have. Oh my God, it's Paul. How's it going, Paul? So today we are, first of all, I did get on I've been fighting on Facebook, which I haven't done this in a long time. So yeah, I'm getting into fights. I'm getting into some fights. Okay. I think you'll find this to be interesting. It's, but yeah, just to give a little bit of review. Yeah. So the cold training book is coming out August 31st. And it is also what I'm trying to do on this cold training book. So anytime you write a book, what you try to do is have like maybe a cool little bonus feature, right? You try, you want to make your book as cool as it can be. And so I've got a little bonus feature. When you buy it at the end, you can go to a website, a very special secret website, and you'll get bonus materials. And what I'm trying to do this month is complete a cold training, or at least not even complete it. My goal is to make a cold training course that every month we have some kind of a new challenge. And the idea is it's 12 months, starting with month of September. And, we can, the first one is cold showers. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen a little bit of the footage of me getting footage. So I've started with that. And then every month, hey, some kind of a cool new challenge. And as the weather changes, the challenges change. So anyway, all right. So yeah, Facebook is a place where, I don't know, good people go. Are they good? Are we good when we go to Facebook? So I'll never forget a long time ago, whenever I first joined social media. I'll never forget because my sister, she called me and she's like, "Hey, listen, I've heard about this new social media thing." And we've had social media now. Gosh, it's been a long time. The world has had social media for quite some time. And there's all these Facebook groups and there's all these different kind of communities that have formed. And hey, that's awesome. I've actually met, what's crazy is I've met some of the people that I, met in a Facebook group. I've met them later on in life. We've connected, we've done business, we've hung out, a lot of different people that I've met over the years are through Facebook groups. But I will say that so what happened was, I've been working on my cold training book. And like I said, it comes out at the end of this month. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to join some cold training Facebook groups. And actually, just as I even thought of it, of course, as if, Facebook kind of reads your mind, they're always listening, but maybe they've got mind reading things. So there's this cold plunge community, huge community. I think there's like 50,000 people in it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll join that. I want to see, is my book actually addressing the questions that people have? because there's so many cold training books. Like if you've read Susanna Solberg's book, or if you've read, I mean, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of books out there that are the rah cold training, right? These are the benefits of cold training, and that's cool. I didn't want to be that book, and this is, like I said, this is a book that I started as an ebook 2019, 2020. I updated it with some interviews, and then I pretty much wrote. I would say this final version is only half. It's about 50% new material, 50% material that started in 2019. I've got an interview with Joseph Coburl. He's the guy who beat Wim Hof's record. I mean, his record's been beaten quite a few times, but there's not a lot of people that speak English who have beaten these records. So he actually wrote the foreword for the book, so thank you to Joseph Coburl. I've got an interview with Kath Pendleton. She's the first person to ever swim an ice mile in the Antarctic Circle. Katarzyna Jabowski, who currently is the female longest ice to skin record. She's from Poland. She doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Polish. So we had to do as best as we could with an interview via email where we were translating with Google Translate. And I wish I could have had more about her, because she seems like just a really fascinating person. The language barrier did get into the way, but she is mentioned in the book as well. So basically, so what I was trying to do is go to these groups just to see, okay, is this book that I just spent all this time on, is it actually addressing questions that people have? Or is it just questions that I think people should have, right? So I go to this site, and it is an absolute nightmare, guys. Like, there are people asking legitimate questions. There are people asking terrible questions. You can ask a terrible question. But there are people asking all kinds of questions. And then what you get is basically, if you've ever heard of, what you get is the blind leading the blind, but you also get, have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? So if you've never heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, basically there's these two guys, Dunning and Kruger. They did a study, and they found that when they don't have any idea about something, right, they consider themselves totally a novice. They're pretty humble about it. And they recognize, hey, listen, I really don't know anything about it. But when you start to know just a little bit, right? And back in my day, we used to say, you know enough to be dangerous. Well, that's literally the Dunning-Kruger effect. Suddenly you think you're an expert, and you're just like, because ultimately the unconscious you doesn't know what it doesn't know. So it just assumes, well, hey, I don't know what I don't know. It doesn't even think that. It's just like, well, if I don't know it, it probably doesn't exist. So you get an infinite group of Dunning-Kruger effect. You get a lot of people who think they know what they're talking about, but they really don't. And they speak with an incredible amount of authority and confidence. And here's the thing about our species. So our species has a lot of senses that help us to seek out things that are not good for us. So for instance, you've got taste buds, you've got the sense of smell. If something smells rotten, you're not going to eat it. If it tastes kind of bad, maybe you'll spit it out. Well, we don't have any senses to know if the information we are ingesting is quality information or not. And so the way we tend to decipher, does this person know what they're talking about, is if the person acts like they know what they're talking about. Is the person coming across as really confident? And of course, the names like Gary Brecka come to mind. I could go on. There's a long list, but there's a lot of people that know very little, but they come across really confident. And as a result, people start following them, and they just believe them. And that's just what we do as a species. And so I was in this Facebook group, and there was this guy, and he said, hey, I was wondering if we should be taking our temperature before an ice bath, and then before and then after, to see how much our core body temperature has dropped. Is that something we should be doing? And of course, if you know anything about cold training, you know It's like, okay, someone needs to help this person quickly, right? There needs to be someone to help this person not die as soon as possible because core body temperature should not drop during an ice bath, right? And if it does, it sucks. If your core body temperature drops even by just a degree or so, you are going to feel at what we call after drop. And if it drops like 3 degrees, and now we're just talking Fahrenheit, right? But it's even worse if it's like 3 degrees Celsius, you're starting to become hypothermic. So okay. So what I did, I tried to do this guy a favor. And if you don't know me, I mean, I assume if you're watching, you know me, because nobody, I mean, if you're watching, you probably know that I've been cold training for 12 years. I've gone through the Dunning-Kruger effect. There was a long time that I felt like I knew way more than I did. I probably gave terrible advice for a while. And now, after 12 years of regular cold training, I have gotten past the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I've done a lot of research. And the thing is, I've trained a lot of people, and I've done a lot of stupid things where I probably could have died, and I should have died. All right. So it's not like I'm. This is the weird thing about Facebook, and help me out. Have you ever done this? Have you ever gotten in an argument about something on Facebook? Like, for instance, this is a cold training group that I was in, but it's about some interest. And then you're like, no, really listen to me because I know what I'm talking about. And then you feel like you have to give them some kind of a resume, right? And I am not going to sit there and tell the person all of my credentials. I'm just going to give the person the advice. So this guy, he was thinking, hey, maybe we should be, letting our core body temperatures drop. And so I said, okay, I was typing in, I was like, hey, bro. And of course, you got to think about tone, and people take everything the wrong way. Has anybody ever had a Facebook argument, right? Or it wasn't even meant to be a Facebook argument, but then it turned into somebody felt like you might have been mic dropping. And then suddenly, okay, now it's now it's this whole contest of who can mic drop the most, or, just it's this bad faith argument and conversation. So basically I said, hey, listen, congratulations on getting into, cold training. I tried to be as nice as I could, right? You want to try to be nice and let a person know, hey, I'm not calling you dumb. Because as soon as you let them know, I mean, it was a dumb question, but it was coming, I think, from a place of good faith and innocence. And the guy, he just didn't know any better. So I was like, hey, you should not be letting your core body temperature drop. All right. So you should always get out of the ice bath before you have a drop in core body temperature. And I said, hey, listen, you should always get out of the ice bath when you're still feeling really good. And you should always get out of an ice bath. I mean, these are just really foundational. If you read my book, I go into great details as far as like, my book is not about why ice bathing and cold training is so great. I do have stuff in there about that. But the primary is like how to do all these different kinds of cold training routines, like walking barefoot in the snow or ice bathing in a frozen over lake or something like that without dying, because I have done these things. And it's like, okay, there's things you need to know, right? So I was telling this guy, hey, you shouldn't see a drop in core body temperature. You should always get out of the ice bath when you're still feeling like you could probably keep going. Don't wait until you're feeling miserable. Don't wait until you're just feeling awful. You want to get out, you really want to get out at a reasonable time, and don't try to make records. Don't try to push yourself to these crazy limits. It's a long game, not a short game. And the guy, he clicked like, and I'm like, okay, great. All right. Good job, Jesse. You saved somebody today. And that's when it started. That's when it started, folks. Some guy, I forget what his name is. I think it was like Patrick or something like that. I forget. And Patrick, if you're watching, much love. And I really wasn't trying to mic drop, even though I know you were. But anyway, this guy, he says, hey, bro. No, actually, the whole point of cold plunging is you do want the core body temperature to come down a few degrees, right? And it was just one of those things to kind of let me know, hey, bro, you totally missed the whole point of cold plunging. And he wasn't trying to be rude, I don't think. But I was like, oh my God, this is a person who honestly believes that the goal of cold plunging is to basically flirt with hypothermia, which it is not. And so probably John Jacob. His name is my name too, and believe me, I have made all these stupid mistakes. I have done all these stupid things. I have had hypothermia. I have had after drop so many times. And the thing is, it sucks every time. And when you do those things, you open yourself up to illness. You open yourself up to possibly death, right? So I'm trying to help this guy. And I was like, no, hey, bro, just so you know, when you let your core body temperature drop, especially a few degrees. So, okay, help me out here. In my word math, I'm thinking a couple is 2, right? A couple is 2. A few is 3 or more. Am I right on that? A couple degrees would be 2 degrees, right? A few degrees, right? Okay, thank you, Paul. A few degrees in my book is 3 or more degrees, which would put you at hypothermia, right? So you get down to about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're at the edge of that's what we might consider to be mild hypothermia. And the thing is that you do not want to mess with that. And I know there's a lot of, gurus online and things like that. And it's like, oh, just use your mind and stuff like that. But let me tell you, you do not want to mess with that. Actually, that's why I wrote the book in the first place, is because there's so much junk information and just woo-woo nonsense. If you get down to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, you're hating life. And it's possible that your core body temperature can continue to cascade down. So I was like, hey, listen, and I just gave him these facts. I just was like, hey, thank you so much. But this is one of those things where, we just don't, if you go down, that's hypothermic, right? And so I tried to be as nice as I could. But let's face it, on Facebook, these groups, they're not designed, that Facebook is not designed for like nice back and forths. It's strangely enough, because if you're actually just trying to correct a person, even if you have evidence, even if it's just like some real basic stuff. And so I was just like, this is just, real, it is. And you just Google it, And so, then he came back with all kinds of, then he started making fun of me. Okay. So he's like, oh, well, I've only been ice bathing for almost a year now, and like, he just basically threw that in my face. And he's like, I've only died twice, that kind of joking with me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, at this point, it's not like I'm trying to have this, like pissing contest with somebody else. I'm just literally saying, hey guys, don't do that. And the original post, that guy, I feel like, was in good faith, right? And so it's one of those things where I was just like, hey, just whatever, just please don't let your core body temperature go so low. All right. That's a recipe for a disaster. You're exactly right, John. So there's a lot of variation, but whenever you start messing with core body temperature, that's bad. That's bad on every level. In fact, in my opinion, so I've done a lot of research on cold training, and I've worked in it for 12 years now. I've worked with it professionally for 8 or 9 years. I've ice bathed thousands of people professionally. And this year I started adding onto the language of breath certification an ice bathing component to it. If a person wants to ice bathe other people, I was telling them all the things that I wish someone would have told me, but no one ever really did. And so, and all the things that other people told me too. But there's a lot of things that kind of go under the radar, especially in the world of raw ice bath, right? So you go on this forum, and every question that they ask, it's like, hey, can ice bathing be good for fill in the blank? And like, you're going to get a million, like, yeah, man, it cured me. It cured me of this and this and this. Will ice bathing help me regrow my balding hair? Yeah, man, it's going to do. And it's just like, To be honest, while I do believe ice bathing has a lot of benefits, I think the primary benefit when it comes to your immune system, and this may surprise some people, but this is, I mean, after 12 years of doing it myself, after researching this book, I honestly believe that the primary reason why we see such benefits to immune function is the Paul. Yes, your eyes, you can levitate now. That's that's another thing. I forgot to put that in the book. But I honestly think that the primary reason why we see immune function improve because of regular cold exposure, it's not necessarily because of increasing stores of white blood cells or the activation of the interleukins that it activates. I don't really think that those things are having that great of an effect on our immune function. I honestly, after all of my research, I'm starting to believe, and you're going to have to read why in my book. I'm starting to believe the primary reason why it has an improvement on our immune function is because it helps us to improve our ability to maintain core body temperature. Because there is a connection between being cold and catching a cold. And the whole internet is like, no, man, there's no connection at all. But there is. There absolutely is a connection between being incredibly cold and catching a cold. Now, it is the virus that makes you catch the cold, but it is different if you are really cold versus if you're not. And you're more likely to catch a cold when you are in cold temperatures than if you're not in cold temperatures. However, because of hormesis, we are able to, I got a big fly. You can see that on my webcam. It's a weird day here in the Midwest. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's only in the 70s. It's just a beautiful, beautiful day. Anyway, but when it comes to our immune function, I think there's been a lot of tea leaves in this, and a lot of look at these things, and we kind of make a lot out of a little. And when we do this, sometimes we lose the forest for the trees. We start focusing on the trees. We stop noticing the forest. So yes, you are more likely to catch a cold when it is cold outside. There is a connection there. And no, it has nothing to do, well, it might have something to do with vitamin D, but come on, it doesn't. If you're incredibly deficient in vitamin D, maybe, but you know, good old Gary Brecka, he's out there saying, you know, why we catch a cold in the wintertime? It's because of vitamin D. Like, this is what we used to say like 10 years ago. That's the thing. People always ask me, hey, what do you think of Gary Brecka? Is like, that guy, I am not an expert in all the things that Gary Brecka claims to be an expert in, but in the areas that I am an expert, I can tell you he is not an expert. Because I've seen him, he's talking about how low vitamin D in the wintertime is the reason why people catch more colds in the wintertime. And people have been saying this for over a decade, and we know this isn't true. Like, you can supplement vitamin D and somehow you still can catch a cold. Well, why is that? And it's probably going to be in the wintertime whenever it's cold. Well, it's probably because we're all indoors, right? When we're indoors, we're around a lot of people. Because modern Western humans are always outdoors in the summertime, right? I mean, seriously, we're indoors all the time. Humans are always indoors. It's not like there's a huge change. Yes, we're outdoors more often in the summertime, but you don't see people walking around just like always outdoors. We're still working indoors. We're still in air-conditioned buildings, right? So if it's not vitamin D, and if it's not the fact that we're indoors, what is it? Well, there actually is, I mean, research that we've known, and I mean, it's been known for a long time. And the funny thing is, because of the raw cold training movement, there's been a lot of noise, and a lot of people forget that there is a connection between virus strength and temperature, and that depends on your core body temperature. That depends on the temperature within your whole organism. And so when we cold train, one of the things that I am starting to believe more than anything, when we talk about the immune system benefits, it has less to do with the stores of white blood cells and the T killers, all those things. Those things, I think they do play a role. And I talk about that in my book. But I think it has more to do with the fact that you can thermoregulate, because our temperature, the human body, the core body temperature that we carry around, is one of the most lethal things for viruses. And a lot of times, I mean, you don't really hear people talking about that. But when we train in the cold, right? Not when we push ourselves, like this particular person that I was getting in an argument with. I mean, we went back and forth. This guy he was mic dropping on me, and I was trying to be nice, and he was mic dropping. And eventually, even Jesse Coomer gets a little, okay, I'm going to mic drop a little bit. At one point, I just said, listen, after he told me he's been cold training, and he thought it would be a pretty impressive thing to say, hey, listen, I've been cold training for a year straight. Boom. He even showed me a picture of his ice plunge so that I knew he was legit. And so this guy is like, he's been cold training for a year. Look at my ice plunge. I know what I'm talking about. And then he proceeded, so he mic dropped, and I was like, listen, dude, you're obviously very green. You don't, I was there too at one point, and I'm just trying to warn you, just so you don't do this. Do not allow your core body temperature to go down. I'm not trying to, whatever. I said, I've been training for 12 years. You're going to, and so I always hate having to do that when it comes to like Facebook stuff. I always hate having to give my resume of this is why you need to pay attention to me, and let me show you what I'm awesome, man. Right? Because I just don't feel like, I just told him, just go ask a doctor or a medical professional, should you allow your core body temperature to go down, to 95 Fahrenheit or lower, and of course, when I say that, then suddenly a lot of people are like, doctors, what? And it's like, this is not a controversial issue. This is not like big pharma is pushing an agenda or something. It's just like, we just know your core body temperature needs to maintain. And when it doesn't, certain enzymes cannot do the things they're supposed to do, and you will die, right? He needed a win. You're right. And eventually what happened was he told me I should look up Gary Brecka and Huberman. I probably should avoid this Wim Hof guy. And of course, he doesn't know my history. He doesn't know, Wim Hof was my first teacher, and I've worked with him a lot, and so he doesn't know these things. And hey, the thing is, that's fine. But I was just like, okay, just please don't hurt yourself. So eventually I just did one of those things where I just liked his post, and then I occasionally checked back to see if he said anything else. Of course I did. You would too, right? And I gotta say, it was kind of fun. I hadn't really gotten into I hadn't gotten into a Facebook fight in a while. So it was actually kind of entertaining to go back and forth with this guy on Facebook. And then the guy who made the original post, he was liking both of our things. I think he was just eating popcorn, enjoying the back and forth. But what happened is I kept seeing this, and I'm still in this group. I keep seeing it. It's all these like just terrible advice, just awful advice. And this is one of the worst parts about online advice. So this kind of brings me to, I guess, the main point of today's talk is that free advice is generally going to be worth nothing, right? You can get a lot of free advice. And hey, I've got a YouTube channel here, and I try to give you really good free advice, but it's just but hey, guess what? There's a lot of free advice, and there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of confidence in their advice. And, you just don't know. You don't know. And the thing is, and when you're wrong, this is another interesting thing about being a human. We don't have any intuitive way to know if we're wrong or not. Have you ever thought about that? Like when you're wrong, when you were in the act of being wrong, you believe you're right. Just think about that for a second. It's kind of interesting, right? That's why they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. People who have good intentions can also do terrible things, right? And so I think that's how it is with a lot of these Facebook groups. And I've been in all kinds of different Facebook groups over the years, from breath work to cold training to sauna and all these things. And what you have is, I don't even know if these are good communities. I mean, they're kind of good communities, I guess. But the problem is, I see all these questions and I see terrible answers. I remember whenever I was asking questions, whenever I first started getting into breath work and cold training and stuff like that. And I remember a lot of the responses that I would get were, I guess they were fine. I even remember some of them still to this day, where now I'm like, oh my God, why did I listen to that person? Um, oh my gosh, yes. Look at all the crappy financial advice on YouTube, and it's all free. Yeah, buy now. The big one's coming, right? I don't know how many. And this lets you know that I'm a middle-aged man. I'm a dad in his early 40s. Whenever I can talk about financial stuff on YouTube, but it's always like, yeah, this is the big crash. You need to buy gold. I don't know how long they're going to make this claim. I mean, eventually they're right. A broken clock is right, what, twice a day, right? So, I mean, you can make these claims, but yeah, you see a lot of just terrible advice. And the problem is, we have gotten, and of course, if you know me, you know that I'm a recovering English professor. You know that I am a college. I'm a person that worked in academia for quite some time, for 11 years, 11 years as a college professor. And we don't pay our teachers very well. And I know firsthand, because strangely enough, while I do love the idea of the internet being there and it's this huge store of free information, it's also mixed in with a bunch of garbage, right? It's also mixed in with all these people who want to solve your problems and make it easier. And that's the thing that the unconscious you wants, right? In the language of breath, we work a lot with unconscious processes. And one of the things that all human beings want, we want it to be simple. Make it simple. Don't give me all this complexity. And that is literally because that's a survival mechanism, right? When we have to use our analytical thinking, problem solving parts of our brain, it costs a lot more calories and it takes a lot of time. We just want the quick fix. And it's not that you're lazy, it's just that you're built that way. And so when you say, okay, well, I want to find out more about an issue, I'm going to join a Facebook group, you have to know you're going to get what you pay for. And there might be really good information there. Just think about the situation that original poster had. Okay. So that person who asked that question, asked the question. It was a very, this person was saying, okay, should I let my core body temperature drop? And that person had to decide, do I listen to these two people? Which one of these two people do I listen to? Okay, and it was, you couldn't have any more different of a thing. You had this new person, very green, only like a year in to cold training, and then I've just finished a book. Like I do this professionally. I've been doing it myself for 12 years. I've been training people professionally for like 8. Like, he's got these two voices, but the problem is, he's on this forum where both of us have equal say. And hey, I'm all about, freedom of speech and all these things, but there's no way for him to tell the difference. I guess he could look us up or, Google our names or whatever, but who's going to do that, right? So Paul says, at the end of the day, most people are going to believe. You're right. We're going to believe whatever we want to believe, whatever makes us feel better. And that might be that if I buy this whatever potion and I put it in my hair is going to grow back. Or if I do this whatever, I never get sick again. And I want those things too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's a very natural thing. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Paul, because I think this is something that, right? We as human beings, we want simple answers. We want it to be easy. I would, if there was some kind of an easy way, recently I saw an interview. I forget the guy's name. um, I think it was Dr. Mike from the Periodization Health or whatever. He's this like the big burly Russian lifting guy, and he was talking about how someday he hopes there is a pill that gives you the same benefits as exercise, right? So, even though his whole thing is exercise science and he's very much into exercise, he does hope that someday there's going to be a pill that you take and you get all the exercise benefits without having to exercise. Then we can spend our time on other things. Now, I personally, I probably will. I'm thinking about making a response video to that. But hey, since we're all here, we're hanging out on Friday. I think it's just like cold training. And in my book, and if you've heard me talk, cold training is a lot like exercise. Actually, it mimics one of the reasons why cold training is so beneficial is because it mimics some of the effects of exercise. Exercise is the one thing that we know for a fact it's good for you, right? You can take all these supplements, you can eat right, you can do all these different diets and things like that, but we know for a fact, we've got mountains of evidence, regular exercise is good for you, right? There are positive outcomes. And cold training has a lot of things that mimic exercise. Heat training, it seems like heat training also has a lot of those things as well. So we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll work on a book for sauna. I'm absolutely in love with sauna now. But, what if there was a pill that you could take that would make it so that you would never have to take an ice bath again or a cold shower? You get all the same physiological benefits, but you never have to do it again. And this is where I think we would miss the biggest benefit of cold training and the biggest benefit of exercise. And that is that you have to engage with discomfort. There's an enormous amount of psychological benefit of doing that, right? Taking a fire bath, you're going to take I like that. I like a fire bath. That's pretty cool. But yeah, you have to engage with discomfort, and engaging with discomfort on purpose. When you do that, you get something that you cannot intellectually get. So there are many psychological benefits of doing of framing, of positive thinking, of all these things. But in order to actually learn something and believe something, you have to regularly experience it. And that is because the part of you that really believes something, the part of you that really is convinced of something, is not a part of you that you have conscious access to. It is part of your unconscious. And that part of you has to learn. It has to do what we call implicit learning. And implicit learning is something you have to do through experience. That is, it's you can visualize, they always talk about people visualizing doing free throws and they do a little bit better. That's cool and all, right? But you actually have to have done the free throws in order for that visualization to work, right? And it won't be as good if you actually do real free throws versus just visualizing. The real thing is always going to be better, especially if you notice that you're getting better and you're going to have more confidence. And here's the cool thing. You get in that ice bath every single day, or just whenever you feel like it, whenever you're called to it, but you do it, you're overcoming that discomfort. And the beauty behind that is you, on an unconscious level, start to see yourself as a person who can do difficult things. It's not something you intellectually, can teach yourself. You have to actually do the thing in order to get the thing. In order to get that aspect, you have to actually do the thing. And it's called implicit learning. It's how we do most of our learning, but we don't talk about it. Like for instance, my son he's in elementary school and they're teaching him how to do reading and writing and arithmetic and all those things, right? But they don't teach him how close should I put my face to another person's face. They don't teach him how should I do tone and inflection. They don't teach him things like how to let's see what else. I mean, we don't, like, the vast majority of what we teach a person is intellectual, but the majority of what we learn is implicit. And especially early on in life. And that's why they talk about how we learn so much more in those first few years, because you aren't actually getting intellectual lessons, you're getting implicit learning. And that's the kind of learning that turns into skill. It can turn into biases. John was talking about finance. I mean, there's one of the greatest books on finance, Thinking Fast and Slow. I forget the name of the author for some reason off the top of my head right now, but he's had a huge impact on me, and I forgot his name. He died just within the last I think earlier this year. Daniel Kahneman. Yeah, Daniel Kahneman did a lot of research on this. So the unconscious you is you, and it's actually more of you than the conscious part of you that we think we are. And that's the part of you that has to see it done. That's the part of you that has to experience it, that has to get those reps in. And once that part of you knows something, it knows something. That's why when we train people, for instance, when I train when I train athletes and when I train breath workers to train athletes, we teach people how to get people out of their critical thinking self, right? The conscious self into that unconscious self where all of those skills actually reside, so that we can get back into a state of, well, not back, so that we can get into a state of flow, so we can get out of our own heads, get out of our own way. You can call it whatever you want to. And no, it's not sitting down and doing, huff and puff all day. And it's far more nuanced than that when you get into the depths of what we are as an organism. Of course, for more on that, take a look at my my book, Language of Breath, or the online course. Actually, hey, the online course is on sale this month. I forgot to mention that. I sometimes forget to mention business things, but it's Friday. So, I mean, the weekend is here. Guess what I'm about to do? So I'm about to go to my 25th high school anniversary. I've got to take a drink of water after saying that. So tonight I go to my 25th high school reunion. I have not seen a lot of these people in 25 years. It is getting crazy. How did this happen? Time flies. Start building up the anterior mid. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm ripened. I'm feeling ripened is true. So what's funny is I knew all these people whenever I was the most dysregulated, the most like I was at my worst. And I did everything I could to avoid feeling anything. I did everything I could to try to avoid just the feeling, the resistance of life. And so it'll be interesting to see those people again. So tonight I get to go see those people. It is a crazy, crazy time. Just anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks to Paul and John and everybody that's made a comment today. I appreciate you a ton. And I'm going to be trying to do these more. I've got a couple of videos in the hopper, and I've kind of taken a break on this channel for just a little bit. And of course, the algorithm is clearly working against me, and it's punishing me for taking some time off. But I appreciate you guys being strong and being here. Expect some really cool things from this channel. And I'm working on possibly doing a new podcast with another breath worker that I find to be really, really hilarious. And that it should be coming out in the near future. And then, of course, if you're looking into the Language of Breath, Breathworker School, we have an in-person practical. In addition to online training over Zoom, we do like 3 months of online training over Zoom. And then we have an in-person practical. We're about to announce the location for the in-person practical for 2025. All those things will be coming out very shortly. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, go to jessecoomer.com and sign up. You'll get all the updates there. Guys, I want to thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.